Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Franchise Interviews. For over 6 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 7 years now, we've been asking the Frantrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with Ron Green, the CEO of Another Broken Egg Café. And Another Broken Egg Café is a full-service breakfast, brunch, and lunch restaurant. Currently, they just launched their National Egg Month giveaway and are quickly expanding. In the first quarter alone, they opened 9 new locations and are targeting more areas for growth. I'm going to talk to Ron about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we got a great show.
Are you one of those special people who are willing to go after your dreams and goals? Are you ready to fulfill that dream of owning your own business with the security of a proven brand? The opportunity to take control of your future and own a Rita's Italian Ice franchise is within your reach.
Rita's is seeking success-oriented individuals who are ready to make a change in their life, and Rita's offers unparalleled training and support to assure your success. And did you know the frozen treat industry is a recession-proof industry, and there are Rita's in 23 states currently with 540 stores open. Rita's Italian Ice has been around for 25 years and is listed as a top-performing franchise by the Wall Street Journal.
Now here's the really good part. Rita's Italian Ice is a unique and amazing taste treat. It's smoother than a snow cone, and it combines ice with real fresh fruit. The real fruit adds dramatically to the taste, and it comes in over 40 flavors. The ice and fruit are mixed on site and made fresh daily, and it is delicious.
You'll want to know more about this exciting and successful franchise opportunity. Go to www.ownaritas.com and get all your questions answered. That's www.ownaritas.com to take control of your dreams and future today. You don't want to wait any longer to be a part of this adventure. www.ownaritas.com.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 7 years now, we've been asking the Frantrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with Ron Green, the CEO of Another Broken Egg Café. And Another Broken Egg Café is a full-service breakfast, brunch, and lunch restaurant. Hey, Ron, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Marty. It's good to be here.
It's my pleasure, Ron. I would like to ask our guests, where are you calling from today?
I'm calling from Northwest Florida in Miramar Beach, Florida.
Oh, fantastic. How's the weather down there today, Ron?
Oh, it's magnificent. We're at probably about 75 degrees right now at about 10:30, and it's getting warmer each day. We've finally got our spring coming around for us.
That's finally, right?
Yeah.
It's a great time of year to be in Florida. It's really fantastic. When I read about you, and I read about your story, I mean, I thought it was very inspirational and just interesting for the show, and you were there, of course, at the beginning. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the history of Another Broken Egg.
Well, originally, I started formulating the thoughts in my head, and probably in the middle 80s, I was working for the Department of Defense and Department of Energy on several different projects throughout the United States and Europe. And as I traveled up and down the California coast where I lived for 16 years, I would sit in some of these brilliant little cafes and enjoy these great breakfasts and brunches. And it just seemed everywhere I went, I would pick an idea up here and pick an idea up there. Because, as you well know, nothing is really original. You get ideas from your experiences and the things that you do. So as the years progressed, and I moved from California to Louisiana, I was working deeply on a project called the Superconducting Supercollider, which is a Department of Energy program out of Texas. And it came to an end. It was coming to an end in 1996, and I had moved to Louisiana in '92, and I had gone out typically on the weekends like I do and have breakfast with family and friends, and there just wasn't a quality breakfast and brunch locations anywhere. I mean, we'd go out and you'd spend $20-$25, and you go home and go, I could do better here at home. So what I started doing when the Super Collider came to end in '96, I had purchased an old home, a 1908 home in Old Mandeville, Louisiana. And that location, I was looking for a unique location for my first venture. And the restaurant, the house there was sitting dormant. There was no one living there, but I could look at it and envision having this as a quaint little breakfast, brunch, and lunch location. Now, the reason I chose that 7-2 venture is because I was a single parent raising my son at the time, and I was also coaching him. So it was important for me to be with him in the afternoons and evenings. And I said, I think I could fulfill a niche in the market with an upscale, unique menu and a brilliant, bright, and vibrant colors in the restaurant. And I thought this whole house would be a great place to be creative and do some interesting things in it. So that's how I started. It was in November 21st, 1996, about 4 days before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's a great story. I mean, I love the story when I was reading about it, Ron. It's for many different reasons. One of the many things I like about your franchise as well is, I think it's kind of like a means to an end. You were mentioning that, I guess it was important for you to be able to spend time and get home at a reasonable hour at the end of the day, and a lot of times that doesn't happen when you go into your own business, and it was one of the things that really stood out for me, saying, well, this is an interesting opportunity because you can get home at a reasonable time, and as you said, still be a, baseball coach to your son, or, just be there, with your family and have that quality of life, and that was one of the things that I got from the franchise.
Yeah, it was, and it's funny that this is an important aspect, and it's also a great selling point for the franchise system that we're offering to franchisees, to potential franchisees, because there's so many people who love being in the restaurant business, who love making people happy and have a passion for it. But they're worn out. They don't. By the time they get up in the morning, they're at their restaurant or working for somebody at 10 or 11 in the morning, and they don't get home till midnight or after sometimes. And it wears you out, and you just don't have that quality home life. So I thought carving this little niche in the market and making it more upscale was the right way to go. And it was my concept. It was Marty, it's one of those things that you have to have a concept to be able to turn it into a company. And and an idea by itself is just not enough. It's like talking about your idea for a great novel when you never write a sentence down. So it's like you have to do the footwork and you have to do the research. And you have to know the industry, because what I had done is I didn't know the industry that well. When I was younger, I grew up and worked in 3 or 4 restaurants, but that was 25 and 30 years earlier. And what I did is I sat down, I bought all the books I could find on how to run a restaurant. I read 10 books on it. And that's how I really got started, with the help of some friends, obviously, but that were in the business. But you have to know, you have to do the footwork, and you have to have the passion to do it.
I love the story you were telling, too, Ron. I think you were even talking about the colors. I think you were like sitting in the restaurant one day, and you were just, looking at the different colors, and how certain colors, I guess, like, increase the appetite. Or it was just very clever, I thought. And there was so many things I loved about this story, and you were able to apply it, to Another Broken Egg, and I just thought that was fascinating. So you can really see that you did your homework and your research, and it's, again, one of the reasons we wanted to have you on the show, because we just thought it was a very interesting concept. It's very rare you can get into like the restaurant business and still have that quality of life, at the end of the day.
Right.
It's it was very fascinating. I read too also that I think up to this point you cracked more than 50,000 eggs per week or something like that. I mean, it was some crazy number.
It was, and for the first several years in the business, and from '96 to about 2003, I kept up with my numbers. You can go into your POS system and you can pull up your product mix and see what you purchased and sold. And spend a little time. I used to put a banner up in front of my every anniversary and say we've sold, an 850,000 pounds of bacon for the year.
Wow.
And that's something like that.
Right.
And it's one of those things that we put it up, and the sign people would go, wow, you sold 75,000 slices of bacon in the last year? And I said, yeah, they're growing every year. And,
it is.
And now
very clever. It really is.
Yeah,
it was just there's so many things about it, that I just found interesting. If you were at like a franchise show and Ron, someone came up to you and they said, so what do you guys do? I mean, how do you typically respond to the question, Ron?
What do you do as far as
yeah, I mean,
like
when you go to, I took my wife to her very first franchise show a couple of years ago, and it seemed like she said, everyone that's going up to the booth is asking the franchisor, so what do you do? So what do you do? It seems to be a typical question. How would you respond to the question?
Well, let me answer your question, but let me start a little bit earlier. I have never sold my franchise through franchise shows. I've never had a booth of. Right. All of my franchise contacts have been word of mouth and people getting in touch with us through the website. But when you go to these trade shows, and obviously you wear your badge, and people see Another Broken Egg, and they obviously want to know what it's about. But as the years have progressed and we've became known nationwide, and our branding has become stronger. But I always tell people that we're all about upscale breakfast, brunch, and lunch. We're trying to fill that niche that no one else does. I mean, you can go to all your I'm not going to mention any names, but all your common areas. Every city you go to, you can see the same restaurants and everything. And you can even go to you can go to cities and find unique mom and pops. And originally I started out as a mom and pop, and I told myself, I said, look, if I can get to 3 restaurants, I'd be happy. But lo and behold, within 7 years, I opened 5 restaurants, and I was having 2-hour waits on the outside of my restaurant. People were literally running to the front desk to sign up so they could get in sooner than the 2-hour wait that was happening.
That's great. And how did you know, Ron? I mean, like when you were ready? I mean, was it at the point where, again, we've been doing the show 7 years now, so I get to interview a lot of people like yourself. And was it when people started asking, saying, how do I open up one of these? Or, I mean, how did you know when it was ready to, take it to the next level?
Well, obviously the 2-hour waits was proven that we had something good going on, and we knew what we were doing. And when I originally started out, the most comments we had were, "We love your food. You're doing an excellent job, but it takes too long to get your food to the tables." And so what I did is I enlisted some chefs that would help me improve and show to get my flow out of the kitchen better, and that started driving sales up. But I looked at opening, and my first location was in Mandeville, Louisiana, like I said, and then the second one was where I grew up as a child in Destin, Florida. And that's a very touristy area. A lot resort people come here, and they come here, and they come from Northwest Florida. They come from Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Louisiana. And so when we opened up in Destin and in Sandestin, we got influx of a lot of people, and then they took those thoughts and we ate at this great restaurant in Sandestin, Florida, and so, and then people started emailing me and saying, please open up one in Atlanta. Please open up one in Montgomery, whatever it may be. Right. And I just saw that, I had something that was pretty special. And another thing is someone, a customer came to me one day and said, there's this guy that's selling T-shirts with your logo on it. Wow. And I go, what? And then I found this. I went to this fair, and this guy had my logo on T-shirts, and he was selling them. And I'm going, and that's when I realized that I had a trademark, and I had to step back a few feet and say, look. So I pursued the trademark around the year 2000, and I got it, and that's when I started the process of step-by-step hiring a franchise attorney and going through the process of developing all the manuals, the ops manuals, the recipe manuals, and so forth.
I guess that's how you knew you had something too, wasn't it? When people start selling T-shirts, And I thought the name was very clever too, Ron. I didn't see anything on how you came up with the name, but I thought the name was very clever and very creative. It has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
Yes. Well, I'll tell you the quick story on that one. When I was living in San Diego, there was a restaurant that was called the Broken Yolk, and there was a restaurant called the Good Egg. And so what I took is the broken of the yolk and the egg of the good and called it the Broken Egg. And so the first restaurant was the Broken Egg. And within probably, I would say, the first 9 months, my restaurant was full one Sunday, and I was running around the tables and talking and playing with kids. And it was just the restaurant sat about 100 people. And this lady came up. She put her hands on my shoulders, and she says, "Ron, you've got to open up Another Broken Egg in New Orleans."
There it is.
And I said, I love that name. It came off her lips so easily, and I said, I like that.
It has a nice ring to it. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
What do you look for? When you go into your own restaurants, Ron, it must be interesting for you. I saw the menu, and you guys have a great menu. Do you have a favorite? It's probably hard being the creator of the whole thing.
Well, I don't take credit for all that. I have some great staff members, chefs. I have two chefs on staff, and a lot of my vice presidents, they're all foodies. They all love food, and we collaborate on a lot of things. But originally, I've read a lot of recipe magazines or books, and I would go to Books A Million, and I would look. I would look under recipes, and I would get a thought here, and go back to the restaurant and say, "Hey guys, let's work on this particular thing." Like the Floridian, which is our crab meat omelet. Mm-hmm. We tried for weeks. I ate so much crab meat that I was so sick of it. I wouldn't eat anymore. And then one morning I came in, they had these big smiles on her face, and I said, "What's going on, Sid?" He says, "We got it." And I said, "You got what?" He says, "We got the Floridian omelet." I said, "Oh no, not another omelet."
Yeah.
He said, please sit down. He came out with the omelet that was filled with cream cheese and a beautiful folded omelet, and then on the top he had the crab meat. There was something about putting crab meat inside of an omelet that changed the flavor of crab meat. And so we saute it on the side with a Floridian butter that has butter, garlic, a little bit of white wine, and a few other little spices. And so the butter has a nice, rich flavor. And we saute the crab meat in that, and we fold it over the top, and then cover it with a light scattering of Monterey Jack, and it is exceptional. It's one of our biggest sellers. But let me. So 2 years ago, I have to tell you, Marty. 2 years ago, I was in California and was eating out with my son for breakfast. And I was there for a week, and everywhere we went to different places because I wanted to get little thoughts and things. And everywhere I went, there was healthy items on the menu that kept just hitting me in the face. So I came back home on that trip 2 years ago, and I said, "Guys, we got to change our menu." And they go, "Oh no, what do you mean?" And I said, we've got to go to the healthy side. It's coming this way. The trend's there. We've got to do it. We've got to learn how to use quinoa. We've got to learn how to use our fruits in cool ways. Right. We've got to create our own granola. And along with that, we created a skinny omelet that's less than 500 calories. Wow! And it's our number one seller now.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. It really is fantastic. It's and you're making me hungry too, Ron. It's 15 minutes from lunch. It sounds fantastic. What about the characteristics of? What will you be looking for? What do you look for, Ron, in your franchisees as far as characteristics and traits and things like that?
Well, it's interesting you ask that question because over the last 17 years, I've met so many people that wanted to get involved in the Broken Egg, and I'll tell you, interesting. I did have a failure in my third year with a guy that someone brought to me. His wife actually said, "We're moving to Atlanta. We want to open up another Broken Egg. Can you please let us do it?" And he had worked for, I hate to say this, but he had worked as a district manager for a Waffle House for 10 years, and it was just. I brought him in, and he was a great guy. I enjoyed him, but he just didn't run his restaurant right. Right. And I talked to an older guy, a year later, and I was telling him how frustrated I was with this particular person, and he says, Ron, before you ever go to get into bed with somebody in business, you need to look at how clean their car is, or look at their home and go into their home and visit with them, because that's going to tell you how well they're going to maintain and run their restaurant. And I said, wow, that's interesting. So I don't have the time to go into people's homes now or to go look at their cars, but we have a vetting out system, and one of the things I look for, Marty, more than anything, is the passion in their eyes. Mm-hmm. You can look and you can see people that are hungry to do something like this. When I use that as a metaphor, but it's one of those things that. Have we always made the best decision to grab the right people? I said, not always. Do we hire? Do we bring in potential franchisees that have no business, or the ones that have a lot of business in this industry? And I found that it works both ways. We've recently, in the last 3 years, brought a gentleman that was 70 years old, and his wife was in her mid-50s, never been in the restaurant business. His wife was in the catering business. Not a catering. She was an ER nurse. Mm-hmm. And he kept coming back and saying, I've got this and I found that, and we tried to put him off, and he just forced himself into our business. But to this day, Marty, he is our number one restaurant. Wow. And my whole 34 restaurants currently operating.
That's amazing, isn't it? I mean, when you hear stories like that, no experience at all, and it just it is fantastic. And you have something in franchising when you can do that, when you can take somebody with no experience and they can have this successful business. It really is. It's quite amazing, and I think it's one of the things that we love about franchising the most, Ron. So I think that's a fantastic story. What is the training like? I mean, once you decide, you like them, they like you, and you want to go forward, do they typically come to headquarters? Is that how it works, or? Oh,
absolutely. I think I'm sure you've heard us before, but our offices are here in the Grand Boulevard, which is kind of a large complex. We always have Discovery Day, which typically is a standard thing they do in the franchising world. And we spend a day and a half with them. We bring them into town. We go through all of our staff members here at my corporate office. We take them to 3 or 4 restaurants. We spend time with them. We look at where they're at in their life. We judge the person by the, obviously, first impressions are always important. Sure. But as we say, sometimes we don't sometimes we don't ask the right questions, but they come out in the Discovery Day. And you spend a day and a half with people, and sometimes we even go play around the golf, because people say you really get to know somebody if you play around a golf with them.
Right. It's true. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. But as we go, and if we get through this Discovery Day and we all like each other, because this is a partnership. This is something, this is the 15 years, and with ongoing 5 and 10 years later. So we want to make sure that these people like us as well as we like them. And a potential franchisee, obviously has to have the financial means to do something like this. And so we do delve into their financials in that first day and a half. But after we go through the Discovery Day, then we let them read our franchise agreement. We give them 2 or 3 weeks to digest, and we say our phones are always open. Any question is not a bad question during this time of discovery. We want them to feel completely comfortable with it. And then after that, we sign a non-disclosure agreement, so we're going to be divulging information over the next several weeks with them after we start formulating our partnership. And then, we give them a list of our franchisees that are currently in our system. And we feel like those are our best ambassadors to sell our brand. And really, for us, and I'll get off on a little tangent here, the most people buying my franchises now in different cities and different states are my existing franchisees. They're gobbling them up in a fast way, and that is where most of our sales go, because they understand the return on their investment. They understand what our system's about and our culture, and that's an important aspect for us.
That's a great sign, isn't it? When
yes,
your own franchisees are expanding, it certainly does say a lot. The majority of our listeners, we call them aspiring entrepreneurs. I mean, most of them know they want to get into franchising, but we find that most of them don't even know where to begin. What would you say to our listeners as far as giving them advice in their quest to buy a franchise?
Well, I have three words that I think that are so important: is planning, scheduling, and implementing. Those three things I was taught in engineering many years ago when I first started my first career, and I've applied it to the franchising world. You have to plan. I mean, every day you get up, if you decide that you want to get into something and you want to create something, you've got to plan it every single day. You will put your feet on the ground from when you get up in the morning. And whether it be one little thing you investigate or hundreds of things you investigate on the Internet, which is obviously where our encyclopedia is now. Right. I mean, the world of the Internet gives you so many valuable tools to use. And obviously, your very first steps that you have to formulate your ideas, you need to put them in a business plan. That business plan, it sets the groundwork of what you're trying to achieve. And of course, if you are a young, aspiring entrepreneur, you've got to understand, how you're going to get funded, and you have to go to the banks. And the only way you're going to go to banks is to have a great business plan. And you have to put it together with great numbers and a great vision of what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I think that's well said. We have this great quotes in franchising podcast. I think we're going to put that in there, because I think that's great and strong advice for our listeners. So, because you're the founder of the company, Ron, I can ask you. I mean, where do you see yourself like 3 to 5 years down the road?
I see us. Right now we're at about 30. We're at 34 restaurants currently, and we will be going to. We've got another 80 that are in our backlog that we'll be opening an average of every 3 weeks for the next 5 years, selling or opening cafes. These cafes will be throughout all the Southeast and even going into the Northeast and the North and West. So I have 3 teams currently in the field of 3 people. And what happens is we deploy a team of 3 2 weeks before cafe opens, and we train and all of the franchisees' employees 2 weeks before, and then we stay another week after the grand opening, and sometimes even 2 weeks if the crowds are there and they need additional help. And so as we grow, we just recently completed our agreement with Ohio. We sold 4 locations in Ohio. Wow. And we're looking to expand into the New York area as well as New England. I've got people we're talking to currently from that live in South Florida, but also have homes and connections in New England. So we'll be expanding into the New England area as well.
That's fantastic. Well, if you're heading into Ohio, that means you're not far from Pennsylvania. So I look forward to you guys coming up this way. So I think that's fantastic. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information on becoming a franchisee, Ron? Any websites that you'd like them to go to?
Mm-hmm. Well, we have our website currently is operating, but we're getting ready to. We're just about a month away from taking it down and putting a brand new website up.
Oh, wow.
Through push marketing. It's going to have all of our. It will have all the social media. We'll be able to do purchasing online. It's going to be just your top state-of-the-art website, and that should be launched probably within the next 4 weeks. But you can still go onto our existing one. It's very colorful. It tells you the story. You can go under the franchising and click on franchising, and you'll see that you have many places there that you can get a lot of information. But you can contact us at franchisesales@anotherbrokenegg.com as well.
That's fantastic. It was great. I'm so glad we finally got to have you on the show, Ron, because I've been following you guys for a little while now, so it's great to finally have the chance to speak to you. And I'd already like to invite you back next year as you continue to grow. I think this is a wonderful concept.
Well, thank you, Marty. It was a pleasure being on. I hope I helped a few people formulate some ideas and thoughts.
Absolutely. It was great to talk to you, Ron, and we'll be right back with more franchise interviews. Coming up in segment 2, we're going to hear from franchise author and expert Dr. Robert Needham as he gives advice to our listeners on what they need to know before buying a franchise. And that's coming right up on Franchise Interviews.
Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? For over 6 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Need a business loan? Talk to Diamond Financial Services, the experts in franchise financing nationwide. Whether you're looking to start a franchise, acquire an existing franchise, or expand your territory through opening new locations, Diamond Financial stands by your side start to finish. From pre-qualification to packaging and presenting your application to securing a financial commitment and through the loan closing process, Diamond Financial is there. While you're waiting, thousands of others are making their financial dreams come true. Don't wait any longer. Pre-qualify now by completing a confidential, no-obligation financial analysis. Let's face it, traditional banks just aren't in the business of financing small business. At Diamond Financial, we specialize in securing franchise loans from $100,000 to $3 million and equipment leasing up to $150,000. Let us help you get started. Go to www.franchisefunding.net or call 877-508-2274. That's franchisefunding.net, 877-508-2274.
Hi everyone, this is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. And today's podcast is being sponsored by Diamond Financial Services, and Diamond Financial is the nation's #1 source for business loans with over 50 years of combined experience and established relationships. Financing solutions can be applied to business acquisitions, franchise purchasing or startups, building and leasehold improvements or expansions, equipment purchases, debt restructuring, working capital, franchise fees, or simply the buying out of partners. And if you want more information on Diamond Financial Services, you can click their logo right on our show page of this podcast. Today's great quote in franchising is by Dr. Robert Needham of Franchise Inc. And Dr. Robert Needham is also a franchise author. And we had him on our show, it was about a month ago. And typically on the show we'll ask, what advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur looking to buy a franchise? And I thought his answer was brilliant, so here we go. Another question we'd like to ask someone like yourself, Dr. Needham, is what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise?
Well, first of all, it's interesting. I believe they have to first find out who they are. Mm-hmm. Meaning, are they prepared to work with employees? If not, then they don't need to be buying a business that's going to have a lot of employees. They need to be in a business that's maybe just them or maybe one or two others. Right. Once they do that, they really need to decide what it is they want this business to do. We have a lot of people call us and say, my wife's a great cook. I want to run a restaurant. Right. But there's a big gap between being a great cook and being a restaurateur. Right. And so what we do is we try to find out what they really, the old saying, I believe, I don't know who actually gets credit for originally quoting. It's certainly not me, but the old saying that people don't buy drills because they want drills. They buy drills because they want holes. That's right, yeah. What we try to do is find out what is it that they really want, and the franchise is just the vehicle to get them to their dream. So often when we're talking with them, we find out that it's freedom or financial independence, which, is really freedom still, and they really want to be able to control their own destiny or some of those kind of things. So then we start looking at the business, and we start explaining the business from that direction, and it's really independent of what the business does, because there is no perfect business, as you know. Right. Every business has something that's not great about it. And every business has something that's super fantastic about it, and we try to help them understand those various things.
That's interesting. We had a couple guests a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Needham, from Fish Window Cleaning. There was two young gentlemen. They worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car for many years, and they were very frustrated. They're working 50, 60 hours a week, I think it was, Don, they were mentioning. Right. And they were surprised at first. They ended up in the window cleaning business. They said in a million years they never imagined buying that kind of franchise, but it just matched what they were looking to do. You know, they just wanted flexible hours where they can get home early and spend weekends with their family and things like that. You know?
Right. They did a lot of due diligence and a lot of questions and points of what they wanted in a franchise system, and that met most or maybe all of what they were looking for.
Right, and they're very happy now, you know. So, but yeah, it was just interesting. They never pictured it in a million years.
One of our top female consultants was regional.
I love that quote from Dr. Needham. It's a famous quote. It says, people don't buy drills because they need a drill. People buy a drill because they need a hole. And, you know, the same thing applies to franchising. People don't buy a franchise simply to buy a franchise. People buy a franchise as a means to an end, where they want more freedom or they want to spend more time with their family. So, once again, another great quote in franchising. So, again, we hope you enjoyed this podcast. And once again, we'd love to hear your feedback, and we'll see you again soon for another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising by Franchise Interviews. Take care, everyone.